Oh my god. Podcast. It's March 15th, 2010, and this is the Idle Thumbs Conf Grenade for GDC 2010.
And I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Steve Gaynor.
And I'm Jake Rodkin. And we're joined today by Sean Vanaman.
Sean Famous Vanaman.
Hey, yo. Hey, guys.
What's up,
dude?
Famous?
Not too much. How's it going, Steve? And company.
Yeah, it's good.
Steve and Company is the new name for this podcast.
Steve & Co. Inc.
Yeah.
It was good being at the old conf with you guys today.
Yeah.
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 Why don't you quickly say who you are, real quick? I mean, you work with Jake.
I work with Jake at Telltale. I'm a designer and a writer. And that's what I do.
A designer and a marketer?
And a writer. This is conf voice. This is 3 days of just and it's gone. There's nothing left. So it's a good time to record a podcast when you don't have a voice. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you write and make the video games. You write the jokes.
Yeah, they're jokes, and I make them.
Cool.
With Jake and other guys. Sit around.
Nice.
Drink a lot of Diet Coke.
You play video games all day, probably, and
Yeah, pretty much.
get paid to do that.
Yeah, we just tighten up the graphics and move on.
On what level?
I'm sure the number of times now that a developer has shown up on a podcast and they've been accused of tightening up the graphics is probably disgustingly high.
Oh, he just did it.
Yeah, Famous and accused himself.
I was just trying to cut that one off with the pass.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Well, welcome to the cast. It's your first time.
well, thanks for
thing.
having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a famous dude here.
Oh, man. Oh, buddy.
So how about that Phaedrus?
Phaedrus.
We just, the last thing that happened today was a secret, sort of allegedly secret panel by an
Gradually
unnamed
less
speaker.
secret.
Yeah, right. Increasingly less secret presenter going by the name Phaedrus, I guess a
Phaedrus.
Greek fabulist who
A fabulist. Do you want to define the word fabulist? Because I don't actually know.
someone who writes
Fabulous
fables.
Phaedrus.
Oh, okay. That's
Like
cool.
Aesop was a fabulist.
Oh, all right. I actually didn't know that.
I didn't
Now
know that
you've
either.
learned something on the Idle Thumbs podcast.
On Steve and Company.
On
Well, this
Steve
is-
and Company.
This is edutainment.
It is. But yeah, so it was Will Wright, and he did a Will Wright. So he basically
Yeah.
spent an hour being awesome.
And melting your brain.
Yeah,
Well,
he just
I mean-
injected a small portion of his brain into all of our brains at the
Right.
same time.
It was a large portion.
It was an ultra dump.
just like mainlined as hard as possible.
Yeah. Will Wright took an ultra dump into our brains.
into your brain mind.
Well, and he had,
Yeah.
it was sort of a lofty but vague title, or it's just the metaphysics of game design,
Right.
Which means
which
nothing.
which calls back, though, to when he announced Spore under the title "The Future of Content."
Yeah,
I really
that
enjoyed.
title also reveals that Phaedrus was either going to be a pretentious indie douche or Will Wright.
Yeah.
There was no... Yeah.
No, I mean, like when you see the metaphysics of game design, Phaedrus, it's like, oh, this is going to be a guy with a turntable
It's
up
gonna be
there.
a guy who
like-
actually goes by Phaedrus for real,
Right.
Yeah, or it's
or it's going to be Will Wright. Yeah.
Phaedrus of Phaedrus Games.
Yeah, right.
That was an impressive talk, though.
It was.
Because it was like 120 degrees in there, and everybody was...
That was the heat of everyone's brains getting one
Melting?
step from
There were
catching
just
fire.
eggs,
Yeah.
eggs on top of heads bubbling.
Yeah. You've never seen a Will Wright GDC,
No,
right?
that was the first one. Yeah.
Your
And
mind
after
is
this
opened.
days of no sleep and being on your feet, and then the fact that guy was able to keep my attention for a
Was
whole...
it just like amazing information coming through a haze of just like wafting into your brain?
Well, every
Was it
part of
just
me wanted to
surreal
be
experience?
asleep. That was the whole thing.
Except
Like,
for your
every single part of me
brain.
wanted to shut down.
Will
Except
Wright
for
like
your
a clockwork
brain.
orange your
Brain.
face
because
awake.
totally,
brain.
because there was like a rhythm to his
Brain.
slides where it's just genius, 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 genius.
Does anyone remember what he actually
Funny.
talked about, or did he just sort of
I
like
have
make
no-
us all
Well,
lift
I mean,
2 inches off of our chairs,
The
and then
general,
GDC was
the general
over?
theme was
Games?
many entertainment media and the sort of theoretical like divergence and convergence that is sort of simultaneously happening. And I mean, God, I don't know how to fucking summarize
But then
it.
boils that all the way down to evolution, like in the...
I missed the last like 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he boiled
Where
it.
he did,
He just the mine card just kept barreling down the tracks, and then he did kind of go back to like he kind of wrapped it up at the end, but it was also not like obviously. Oh right, that's what all this has been about. It was pretty broad at the end as well. It was just him talking about all the awesome interconnected thoughts in his brain.
Yeah.
And
This is the
exposing
least
them to
useful
us.
summary for anyone listening. I just now tried to put myself in the position of someone listening to this podcast. It was not
Right, but, it was,
You don't want to be one of
no
those
information
people.
is
the sort of
conveyed.
most material takeaway from that entire thing, I think, was when he had the the percentage of revenue of all the different distribution channels of entertainment in general,
Oh,
and then
right. Yes.
graphed them by whether or not they're sort of like it was like passive or social and all that stuff, and then had the arrows showing which ones feed into other ones. That was like
I was actually surprised that sports was the number one thing,
Sports is
along
the
with
biggest
the internet.
revenue, yeah.
$440 billion industry. Yeah. Makes sense.
the example of like
why athletes make so much.
like
I guess.
why movies, even though movies was in the second tier actually of revenue generating entertainment mediums, that movies, the reason movies are perceived as so big is because movies feed out into all the other ones. Like the way that graph drew where he just wrote Lion King over the word movies, then had it just be like, well, that also means games, music, plays, theater, like television, like 400,000 arrows all flew out of movies.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work for everything.
Yeah, I mean, he was mostly, I felt like he was trying to encourage people to, in their own work, think differently about the actual media artifacts they create, but also like how constrained they are by the platform they're on, and think about, like when you make games, I think you can tend to kind of narrow yourself down into thinking, oh, games are only this thing.
Right, you think of that one single tunnel stretching back 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, and he was like, all entertainment mediums are different things on different platforms, and, think about everything from finding an extremely specific niche and working towards it with your own
like
games.
The
Which
8,000 German horse games?
Yeah. One of which I believe Marek worked on. Marek Braunstring is on a couch.
Marek Braunstring is in this room with us observing.
Yeah.
Thinking about the horse game.
Say that louder.
Yell it. That's him. That's BM Braunstring.
Yeah. I thought the talk was also like incredibly optimistic, which I thought was kind of cool. Like,
even though he was talking about humanity becoming a hive mind.
Yeah, but like, there was still this sort of like this brand of like this like thread of optimism to the whole thing. Which he
did kind of leave a little fart on that at the very end, though, where it was like, also everything's ruined and we're all becoming a horrible hive mind. Flippant joke, the end. Like, I thought that was.
It was weird though, because I feel like
did you really think that he was going towards dystopian hive mind?
No, I didn't get that at all.
I didn't get that
I thought
impression.
the whole talk was really organic.
I thought like his last sentence sort of flippantly implied that was a potential outcome, and then he just closed the talk out, which I thought was
I thought there were little laces of that throughout.
Yeah,
I mean, it definitely.
I felt like it wasn't really like a sort of massive. It didn't seem like a horrible thing. It just seemed to be like everyone could communicate with everyone else all the time instantly, and so people are influenced by each other way more than they used to be. Just because of how media works now and communication.
Yeah, I feel like it could have very easily become like a pejorative, like that connection is bad. And there would all this erodes into us being tapped into with a cable in the back of our heads. But especially in lieu of
I don't
like
think that was what he was going
No,
for,
I don't think that's what I was saying when it was optimistic. Because I feel like it's funny because like in lieu of I guess that dice talk with Jesse Shell,
yeah,
where everything's like everything's gonna be fucked. You know, it's like, oh no. And then he comes around and says, Facebook does have millions of users and this graph is staggering, but it is going to behave like everything else, and it's okay.
Yeah, I mean that was what I liked about it. It was like a very broad and even-handed and like really smart talk. Because he was like, I mean, in all that's what it made me feel like. He was trying to get people to think about things more broadly, and it was like, okay, because there were a lot of sections to this talk. He went really fast, and one of them was like, okay, everybody's super focused on Facebook right now because they think it's a curve that's just going to continue going up.
You think of it as just a straight like exponential.
But actually,
rise.
It's going to be an S curve that flattens out after this giant boom, and you shouldn't just think there's this one thing. Like there's all this other stuff simultaneously going on, and there will be another thing that everybody thinks is one thing after Facebook, and like chasing that is not necessarily going to be the most fruitful way for you to create whatever you want to create and communicate with the people that you're trying to reach. So I don't know. I like to talk a lot.
Me too.
There's a ton of content.
He started. I mean, he even made the point of like Eastern versus Western way of thinking. And it was kind of more of a, like, these are just observations and perspectives on all the sort of systems at play right now in our industry.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit up here and tell you it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like, it's just where we are. And it's exciting, actually.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pleasant.
Yeah.
Like, that was such a nice note to end the conference on.
Yeah. Good move on whoever organized GDC of having Will Wright be the last thing that happened.
That was my company. So was me.
Well done.
I was responsible for all of it.
Wait,
I did
thanks.
the whole thing.
I'm really proud of you, Chris. That was great.
It was pretty easy.
No big deal. It's a text message.
Yeah, it was good because, like, I don't know, maybe it was just me or maybe it was the conference, but I felt like I was kind of losing steam over the course of GDC semi-constantly. And then
Saturday also was Saturday.
And then at the very end, it's like, Will Wright explodes your brain. Yeah. And saves your perception of the conference by exploding at the very end, which was great.
And my pace of the show is the exact... My favorite talk was one I went to on Tuesday, which is Tuesday morning. Which is
you went to the...
Which talk was that?
That was a Soren Johnson...
I missed that. Everyone said it was good.
Oh, God, it was... I mean, and again, it's not because you sit there and your mind is blown. I guess I am talking about it.
Oh, all right.
Go about it? Okay.
Go for it, Famous.
I don't want to, derail us from...
No, get Famous on.
We had plenty to talk about.
Super famous. Soren Johnson's really famous. He made Civ IV.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah. And it's not one of those things where you sit there and just agree with the guy. But
what was the talk about?
It was about how... I mean, and it's a duh, like when you describe it, you're like, duh, but it was just such a cogently put together, it was really nice. It was about how the mechanics of your game define your theme and define the meaning of your game, not the theme that you slap on your game. And he started off by talking about Ticket to Ride.
The theme being like the fiction.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like the story or whatever.
That's terminology often used with board game design.
Exactly.
Like the theme is kind of the premise.
Which is where he started. And then he got to Risk and said, like, these mechanics are risk taking because there's dice involved or not dice. I mean, yeah, it's a dice game. Sorry. And you are constantly taking, calculated risks. Like, and that is what that game is about.
Yeah. And it would be about that regardless of whether it says this is a global, game of global domination. Right. It's still the mechanics mean it's about like
bubblegum tycoons. Yeah, it would be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. And he brought up the inside of Ticket to Ride in the note or in the
which is a board game about effectively building railroads across the country.
Right.
Or is it
the theme of that?
Right.
In the fiction of that world is written as you are a rich dude in a parlor room and you have a bet with your buddies who can ride the most rails in 7 days. Like, that's the story attached to that game inside the pamphlet in the box, which is clearly not what the mechanic.
Yeah, it's not what the game feels like to play at all.
If you played it without reading that, you would be like, "Oh, we're a bunch of railroad tycoons trying to build railroads."
Yeah,
and
everybody
the mechanics.
You're trying to claim all the available land, essentially. Yeah, that's available.
Well, like that is like. I mean, what am I even talking about? Never mind.
Thanks, Jake.
Sorry,
you can be on the podcast. It's fine.
I played Metro a fair amount, which was a board game, and that is the actual premise, and that is the actual mechanic. That's all.
Oh, you mean like trying to ride rails? No,
I mean in that game you are trying to build the longest metro track underground below Paris.
Well,
I don't know why I'm talking about this right now. I just was reminded of it and started talking. Hi, Idle Holmes.
What's up, Jake?
Video games.
Yeah, it's you.
Board games.
It was a really good talk. I mean, he talked about what World of Warcraft is really about and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
what is it? Because I didn't see this talk.
Oh, well, the mechanics of that. It's like he talked about how actually he started with Spore, and he said Spore is not about evolution. Spore is about creation and sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a game where the theme is evolution, but there's nothing about this game that's actually evolution.
The player is choosing every step of the way, every stage, major stage. The player directs the so-called evolution. Yeah. Whereas
World of Warcraft is about evolution. Like you start as just a paladin, and then you continually become more specialized based on your choice.
But similarly, you're still choosing. I mean, it's not like you're subject to, I mean, evolution is based on random chance.
Yeah, it's not about selection pressure, right?
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
but
he's wrong. So that guy's stupid now.
Fuck that guy.
That was the worst talk, I guess. No, it was good. It was very good, and he's just nice and cohesive, which is good.
I mean, he talked about.
He's definitely a smart guy.
He talked about the kind of stuff that Clint Hawking and John Blow have talked about, just like when a game is fighting against itself because it says it's one thing but the mechanics really translate into something else, and so I think that's what you mean by it kind of feeling like like your game is about the rules of the game, not what you say it's about, but it's still not an obvious thing to a lot of people who make games. And it's nice to hear it really well articulated and kind of sound important and like you actually should think about it.
And I think that someone like Soren Johnson is better equipped to, not better equipped, but I think it's understandable why he would talk about that, because that's a very common point of discussion among people who design board games, and the types of games Soren Johnson designs, or that he particularly likes to talk about, are turn-based games like Civ, and he talks a lot about asynchronous Facebook games, and those are games that are very obviously rule-based, unlike a first-person shooter or something, which is rule-based, but that's not what the player thinks about. Whereas when you play Civilization or you play a board game, the player is very, very conscious of the rules, and the player is actively interacting with the rule set. And so it's very clear in games like that, when the designer of the game is saying this is what it's about, when there's a dissonance there between that and what the game evokes to you, it's very obvious. Whereas in a complicated 3D world-based narrative game, you can fake a lot of that shit by just putting a really convincing presentation layer on it, and it's much harder to do that in a turn-based game of any kind or a board game.
But the thing is, I think that's really, I mean, I think it's easy, even maybe especially for developers, to believe that's true. But I think that players see through that instantly.
Absolutely, I agree.
Because if you put something in your game and put a shit ton of AV on it, that it's like, let's make it look like it's super powerful, but it doesn't do enough damage, then the players are going to be like, that's not powerful.
For sure. But I think it's easy to buy into that because you want to.
I think it's easier for developers to trick themselves into thinking they can paper over that kind of stuff, but players see through it right away. Like they're not, they don't get snowed by that stuff. They can feel it, when they're playing the game. So.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Soren, actually, I don't know how many people listening read Game Developer Magazine, another product my company makes. But
it's another product you make, right?
It's true. I do entirely single-handedly create that magazine.
Wow.
But no,
it's pretty good.
I know.
It's pretty good. Good work.
Yeah.
But Soren Johnson is one of our two alternating design columnists for that magazine. Oh, cool. And he frequently talks about that kind of stuff in his column. It's a really good column. Yeah, he talks a lot. And I don't know, for anyone who's interested in game development or game design, it'd be worth seeking that out. Also, if you don't want to actually subscribe to our magazine, he puts a lot of those up on his blog later. So he's got a blog. You can probably find it by searching for his name.
I think it's sorenjohnson.blog.
.blog?
Yeah, .blog is the
.museum,
new,
I think.
.blog is the new .museum.
.website, actually.
Right. Internet.
.blog museum.
Jake is just a wealth of information.
I don't know if this seg is too far-fetched, but I saw Civilization V this week, and I talked to
that's
producer
fine.
on the game.
That's a totally fine seg.
That's pretty good. You went from Civ 4 to Civ 5, so that's just one more.
It's
well done.
But the interesting thing about it is
about Civ 5.
About Civ 5.
Okay, not the seg.
Not the seg.
Okay.
We've moved on.
You can go ahead.
No, because we talked. I mean, I think we brought up Civ 5 last week, but that was before there was really much.
That was just us being excited about Civilization 6-sided tiles.
So right, I saw like a 45-minute demo of it this week, and then spent a while talking to the main producer on the game, and it's really interesting to me because Soren Johnson, as I think we already mentioned, and a lot of people already know, worked on Civ 4, and Civ 4 was I think a lot of people see as the kind of pinnacle, the pinnacle of this particular attitude and design of the Civilization series. I mean, it really is like an incredibly refined game. Civ 5 is actually really intriguing to me because it's really different, actually, and I think that was already kind of clear just in the initial screenshots and announcement, but it's actually shocking how many changes there are. There's no stacking; you can't stack units at all. There obviously we already know it's hex based. It actually looks like what they've internally kind of realized. All right, we have this game that is seen as kind of the culmination of what we were doing, and we're actually going to try making a different game that, to tie back into what we were talking about, sort of maintains these same themes, but gets there through a different route. And it's really interesting to me. They're almost moving a little bit more, it seems, toward the direction of some other strategy game series like Total War, not far in that direction, but with the idea of trying to have individual leaders assert more discernible personalities.
That's cool.
Which is interesting. I'll be curious to see how that turns out. They will try to execute a plan based on what their cultural kind of predispositions are.
Like cultural predispositions, or what we know as the path they took in our.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you could
going with that, but I wasn't.
Well, no, I mean,
like at one point, like
I think you could argue like maybe those. I mean, those things probably have a lot of overlap, right? I mean, the one informs the other. I mean,
so Civ 5 is racist.
It is. It's totally racist. Oh, but actually, one really awesome thing they're doing. This isn't really a game design issue. It's just awesome.
It has racism PSAs.
It totally is racist. Yeah, I love how they're doing that. But no, all of the all of the actual leaders speak in their native language, including like Montezuma, and all.
They got Mel Gibson in there.
They tracked down all these guys who were specialists in the various dead languages. Like some of the civilizations from Civilization no longer really exist in any meaningful form, and so they actually had to track down people who specialize in these dead languages, and then actually get people who could speak them with gravitas and depth.
That's extreme.
It's pretty awesome.
Oh, we should totally do that at Telltale on our next thing. I mean,
have Montezuma in your...
Oh, for sure. We'll just cook. Yeah, we'll just cook.
Yeah, have some guy come in and speak ancient Mayan.
Yeah,
right.
Whatever. Yeah, duh. We'll do that.
But yeah, it's actually a really cool thing.
That's actually the next episode of Idle Thumbs. We'll all speak in our native languages.
That's actually this episode, I think.
Oh, yeah. We actually started doing that about episode 23 of the old podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Not very many people commented on that change, but...
No.
Under the radar.
Hey, did you get any impression as to whether... did you feel like they're making efforts to make Civ 5 more accessible than Civ 4? Because I really felt like I was coming into the fourth sequel to a movie without knowing enough to be effective at it. I mean, I loved Civ Rev a lot. Mm-hmm. I didn't get super into it. I didn't play a crazy amount, but I played it through a bunch of times and I liked it. And it was, even then, maybe
it's
I'm
still pretty complicated.
I could be a stupid person, but it took me a few,
I think that goes
a number of catastrophic failures to really understand how to play it well, even with Civilization Revolution, which is like
much
the baby Civ. Yeah,
I wasn't going to say that. No,
it's really arcade Civ, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. Have you only played 4 and Rev?
No, I've only played 2 and the half of the tutorial for 4, and I was just like, this is not for me. And then Rev,
because I just bought 4 and then I was in, so it's like I'd never played a Civ game before then, and I was like, oh, I'm learning.
Steve, what he's saying is you're an idiot.
No. It was I'm saying I totally agree.
Okay, yeah. So
we were just both idiots,
right?
But I eventually became obsessed with that game, but I still don't think I'm good at it. I'm just like spies, build,
but do you find though that it's that? And I'm this is not a leading question. I'm actually really curious. Do you find that it's enjoyable to play, even if you don't understand all of it, or do you find that it's confounding?
It feels, because it's weird because you come to it with what you know about human history and of course I'm going to need to know pottery,
right?
But then to play this game where I have machine guns and have just neglected pottery is bizarre. You know?
But you can totally do that though. That's totally valid.
It doesn't kind of there's nobody at the beginning of Civ 4.
Reassure you that that's okay.
Sid needs to come on screen and be like, okay, so here's the deal. You're gonna be able to shoot dudes in the face at 1,000 yards but you're not gonna eat some
build
rice.
A wall. Yeah.
I've see that wasn't my problem.
That was really
with it
weird for me. I had to get that.
That's interesting. I've never heard someone mention that, but that's totally makes sense.
Because coming from my point of view, since I had played Civilization 2, a long time ago, but I played it. The whole tech tree thing was not super weird to me. It was all of the other stuff that had been added on in between. It felt like the game had a lot of complexity that you basically had to interface with all of it to be effective.
Okay, so
and I guess I wonder if
I can address that directly.
Because my expectation is in Civ 5, I could see them, a productive direction might be retaining complexity but allowing you to be fairly effective by ignoring a lot of it.
No, that's really true. I can't Sean, I don't really know if they're addressing what you have weirdness with.
I don't even need it to be addressed. That's just my bag. That's my gamer baggage that you bring to everything.
But no, Steve, the interface, particularly from the interface elements, and I don't know what they're doing in terms of, tutorial kind of stuff or anything, but in terms of just the interface that's always there in front of the screen, they are drastically reducing the number of immediately available options for any given unit. And if you need all that weird stuff, you can sort of tree it out, outward. But all the stuff you actually see on the screen is the stuff that 95% of the time is what you're doing, which is move a guy, build a city here. I think
the thing that was even bigger for me was city management stuff, which could get super complex.
Yeah, the demonstration I got is not really in depth enough to be able to really comment on that, I guess. But I'll probably see it soon. But it definitely seems. They did say that they learned a lot from Civ Rev, which was kind of their first stab at doing that kind of thing, about making a more presentable modern era Civ game. But yeah, it definitely seems like the interface is one of the areas that had the most significant amount of time invested into it in terms of accessibility. Whereas a lot of the other systems, I think, are changing a lot, but I think they're trying to retain basically the same amount of under the hood complexity. I think they said they're trying not to exceed Civ 4 in that respect, but not to dial it back either.
That's cool.
And their UI and graphic designer has not played BioShock.
Yeah, I specifically asked about this.
Because the Civ 5 logo and stuff looks very like they've got that sort of Art Deco thing going on, and it just like 2K games, two biggest franchises are BioShock and Civ.
Yeah, and
right now they both have this super clean sort of like slightly like pre-modern deco thing, and they look like, I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Chris and I were talking about that. What I love stupid
I just
crap
started
like that.
picturing like if Civ and like BioShock made a baby. And like
it would be fucking
It would
weird.
be Civ 5?
It would be BioCiv. It would be Civ Shock.
Just like what would happen to your
Civil
cities.
Shock.
Your cities start all nice.
Sid Meier's.
And then
They go underwater.
people, it's really.
But yeah, I like thank you, Chris, for asking about that, because we were both like, what?
Yeah, no, I asked the
I
guy.
can't even picture the logo.
Look it up.
Yeah, it's actually a really nice looking logo. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, the treatment for all the Civ 5 stuff.
The whole little logo animation that goes through, takes the logo through all the ages, I think is beautiful. But anyway, since I liked it so much, I asked the guy about it, and I said, it's interesting that this game and BioShock, obviously both owned by 2K Games, like, is that, I don't know, you guys just were like, sweet, it worked for that game. And the guy said, no, they've actually been working on this game for like more than 3 years. And their UI guy has had that look nailed down for quite a while. And then when BioShock came out, or probably when it was, coming out, and it was, all the stuff was being promoted everywhere, he was like, oh shit. And so he basically just like he still never played BioShock because he was really worried about people having, maybe he probably, I guess, maybe wasn't concerned about that, but I guess more about just himself becoming subconsciously influenced by
accidentally start putting a circus of values into
right.
This is a weird thing to say, but I like that they made Civ Rev in between 4. I like when games do that, actually. We're going to do something drastic and weird and figure something out in our franchise. It's like, it feels like they're making, I like it when they kind of jump off.
It forces them to take a a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah, like they're making a game for us and them, actually. They're like, we're experimenting with some things and we're putting it out because it's good, but
Civ Rev was definitely an extreme learning experience. Every other Civ since 1 has been
like just
evolution and refinement. Yeah. Civ Rev was like
more badass,
totally horizontal. Yeah,
I think it's cool and games do that.
Yeah.
So since we've been talking about Civilization, Soren Johnson, and all this stuff, you guys want to talk about Sid Meier's keynote for a minute? No, yes,
we can.
I don't know if there's a whole lot.
We can.
I really liked his polo shirt. I love that. I love that Sid Meier seems like such a totally like normal dude.
He is.
Yeah,
he's
such a totally normal, just like dad.
Yeah.
Like you look at the guy and like that's like a dad.
That's someone's dad.
Yeah.
And
that's someone's really friendly dad.
Yeah, it's like a totally normal dad, except this one made Civilization.
Right.
And I like that about him.
No, he's a super nice guy.
Yeah, when he was like, when I go to the movies with my wife, like I instantly just saw him in the row ahead of me at like the AMC and like Creek. And I was like, oh yeah, you're that guy.
Yeah.
On like a Thursday.
It's weird
night.
that we all have domestic fantasies about Sid Meier. They're different ones too. I imagine him at the same movie that I'm at. He was my friend's dad in my dream. Like, what?
Me. Creepy.
That has nothing to do with this talk.
Well, I know
Chris,
when we walked out of that talk, you had a pretty strong reaction to it. I thought, at least maybe compared to some of us.
Well, I didn't have a strong reaction. I thought
you broke out in hives.
It's true, I did. It was gross. That was not to do with his talk, though.
Oh, that was.
I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. No, but his talk was sort of just an overview, basically, of stuff that he thinks is useful about game design, particularly as it relates to player psychology and kind of player expectation, and just kind of design guidelines and rules related to that. And a lot of it was about, I think probably the through line, I guess, was sort of transparency in game systems and sort of not subverting necessarily player expectation of how they understand something to happen. Like, if they test something one way, they're going to expect it to work a particular way. And as a designer, you should try not to contradict that and create odd and unexpected situations. Which
I mean, consistency is basically the number one rule in game design.
Yeah.
I mean, systems are consistent by definition.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not a system, right? And so, I mean, yeah, like emphasizing that.
But it's interesting.
It's important, but it's also extremely kind of like it's the foundation.
Right.
You know, it's a thing you should kind of understand.
Right.
Already.
But there's counterintuitive parts to that, like randomness design or sort of bullshitting randomness in a way that is convincing to people. And
it's true. That was one of the most interesting things about it when he was talking about user testing of like Civilization Revolution.
And the players just hate random.
Well, yeah, players assume effectively what it is player. Well, it's funny that he mentioned this because I had seen Rob Pardo of Blizzard basically say the exact same thing earlier that day. Like it was they did the exact same testing and had the exact same results.
Yeah,
which is players will always read if something bad happens as a result of a random roll, players will read the worst into it, and if something good happens, they will attribute it to themselves. Like they will always. You know,
Well, I mean, and the thing that I thought, the other thing about it that I thought was interesting was that basically there are these logical fallacies that are known to be why the house tends to win in gambling because people don't understand how actual probability works, and so they make assumptions about like lucky streaks and like how likely they are to fail if they have really good odds and stuff like that. So you know, people lose money because they're like. You know, if I lost last time, it makes it less likely that I'll lose the next time. You know, because it would be, you know, crazy for it to happen twice in a row. Well, it's a 50-50 chance. It could happen as many times in a row. It's random.
You could lose forever.
Or, you know, like just stuff like that. Or like if I have 8-to-1 odds, that's a sure bet. You know, but 1 in 8 times you're going to lose. And so like the stuff that his users brought to him was basically like, I do have those assumptions because I don't understand probability, and I'm pissed off when I lose a 2-to-1 battle like 3 times in a row. That's not supposed to happen. It's 2-to-1. If I lost once, I'm supposed to win the next time.
Right.
And so they actually had to make the logic under the hood of their game work differently to reinforce the like wrong assumptions that players had going in, so they wouldn't get frustrated when they played the game.
So that it would work the way they effectively think it's supposed to work.
Right.
And it would depress me.
Yeah, it really bummed me out too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Like, I mean, I think it's
super interesting.
I think it's totally valid because at the end of the day, you can always adjust the actual balance of the game to then go back and refit what your new probability rules are, right? Like you're really only adjusting what the player is aware of and how they react to that. But you can still go back and tune the actual values to be whatever you need them to be to make your game balanced. Like it's purely, I mean, that was what was really interesting. Rob Pardo of Blizzard, this is not probability, but it's a similar thing. In World of Warcraft, what they did when they first designed the game was they had an experience system that would, over time, lower the amount of experience you got because they wanted to encourage people to play for like 2 hours at a time instead of 12 hours at a time. So the longer you played, you'd get this experience degradation, and then it would bottom out, and at that point it would be a fixed rate of experience. And people just hated it. They fucking hated it. And so they went back, and he was like, all right, so basically what we did was we made everything in the game take twice as much as experience to achieve as before, and then we flipped it. So actually what happens is you start getting 200% experience, and eventually it goes back down to 100. So that effectively now how they spin it is when you log out for a while, you get this 200% boost when you log back in. And then over time it goes away and you just get regular 100% experience. It's exactly the same as it was before, except now everyone's like, fuck yeah, Blizzard, this is exactly what I want. Yeah. Now I get twice as much experience when I log in. Yeah. But everything in the game takes twice as much. And so
it's a way of framing it as an extra thing, as a positive thing instead of a punitive thing.
And he said the lesson they learned from that was even if the underlying system is identical, players always respond to rewards better than punishment. So even if you're trying to mold behavior in the same way, if you can do that with a reward rather than a punishment, even if nothing's changing, players will always respond better.
And I mean, that kind of shit should be obvious, but you don't think about it. Because I mean, if you think about similar stuff that's done in like marketing, like in the grocery store, like just think about
every sale.
Because they're like, oh, buy one get one free. Like that sounds attractive. Whereas like if you only buy one, it costs twice as much. Like what? So yeah. And you have to do that in your game too.
Right,
but
the grocery store is You should plan ahead by getting 2 things of milk. Otherwise, it'll cost you $6.
What?
Yeah.
I don't like the store at all. Well, how about get this? How about if you buy one, we'll give you one for free? Whoa, this store's fucking sweet.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I like stores telling you to a motherly reminder to stock up on milk, though. Otherwise, it will cost you more.
It's called Moms.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Video games.
I like him. But the thing about Sid Meier's talk that didn't really seem acknowledged by him was that some of the stuff that he seemed to be presenting as sort of hard and fast universal rules were pretty specific to the kinds of games he makes, where like maybe things he said you should never do, you could actually do in other games. Like when he was talking about some old game, I forget if it was actually released, but
the adventure game that he was working on?
Yeah, the adventure game.
I don't think they released that.
Okay, so it was something he worked on like in the 80s or early 90s, and it was like an adventure game where there's a story where, there's this guy that tells you to go to the castle, and so you go there and you play for, a bunch of this kind of RPG adventure stuff, and you get to the castle, and then you find out that guy was the bad guy all along, and he's like, and then you have to go back to defeat him, basically. He was like, that sucks. You should never make a game where a guy tells you to do stuff and then it turns out he was the bad guy after all. Nobody would like that. I was like, BioShock.
No, it was totally BioShock.
And so it's I think that like in a few cases he didn't acknowledge like, if you're making a heavily systemic, kind of like rules-based game, if you shouldn't do this.
The Sid Meier Uber board game, basically.
Yeah, if you're making a Sid Meier game, this is a bad idea. In other situations, it could be applicable, but and it wasn't really ever voiced. He kind of had these things that were very like the one way that you should always do something.
Once there's a sort of player character, or sort of weird, cipher that you're controlling.
Once your system is effectively like not symmetrical.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's basically, because he designs essentially symmetrical games. But yeah, anyway, my response to that was I totally agree with you. I don't think that should be something that a game designer simply doesn't do. I guess my response would be, I think more, even if he maybe didn't allow the wiggle room there that he should have, I think the real message there was, and I think he actually said this verbatim, was don't waste your players' time. I think was more of the real message that was more useful to take away. But I guess the other reaction I had to the speech as a whole was,
and it's, sorry, just to reinforce that, I agree with you on that front, where he was using that as a way for saying like they kind of were doing that particular example in their case was kind of designing for the designer's benefit. Like they were like, this would be so cool, this is such a great twist, I want to do this to the player. Right. And then without taking into account, well, maybe the player would actually hate this because in the way they had implemented it, it basically invalidated all the gameplay up to that point, and so thinking you shouldn't be focused on your own desires, you should be focused on what's going to be good for the player and value their time. Those are good takeaways.
Right.
It was just some of the stuff
I understand.
was put across in a sort of funny way.
The other sort of overall takeaway I got from that was, and this is arguable, I don't know if necessarily what I'm saying is true, but the sense that I was left with was that these are things that probably work pretty well, again, as you say, mainly in a sort of more traditional systemic environment, but they're things that, because they do run contrary to the notion of kind of consistency for the player, they're things that if you do decide to make a game that reverses that or includes that thing or breaks that rule or whatever, it should be something you think about more than a lot of other maybe less wide-reaching design decisions. Like that's the kind of thing where if you do put that in game, like BioShock, for example, obviously that was an amazing part of that game. That could, like, there's a million ways that could have been done horribly, more than most design decisions can be done horribly. I was a music major in college, and for like 2 years in our music degree, we learned all of these rules about vocal harmony in 17th and 16th, 17th century, or 17th and 18th century, like choral harmony. And there's all these complicated rules about the way the different voices interact with each other and what's the most pleasing, like leading between different intervals and all these complicated rules. And they're all things that our professors would teach them as if they were ironclad rules, right? But which is very frustrating to like college age student who you want to be doing all this, writing all this crazy music and doing all this stuff. And like, I would talk to them after class and I'd be like, do you really actually expect us to like follow all these rules when we write music? And they're like, no, of course not. Like, absolutely not. That would be ridiculous. What we're trying to do is teach you why these work well so that when you do something else, you understand what it is you're not doing and like why you're doing that. And like this is the pleasing rule that if you do this, it's probably gonna sound pretty good. But there are a million other infinite ways you can write a piece of music, but knowing this tradition will help you understand better when you're doing something else. And like, to me, that has always stuck with me in a lot of different disciplines. And that was actually kind of, because I think of Sid Meier as like that Bach-like guy, right? I mean, all those rules we learned, that was the Bach style of chorale. And Sid Meier is that very traditional, very kind of, like sort of masterly traditional game designer who balances things carefully and works in that framework. And that's kind of how that talk came off to me. It called back all those memories I had of that very rigorous college education. So for me, it was interesting in that respect.
Yeah. Were you going to say something famous?
No, I was going to say that the moment's passed.
I like Nintendo games.
This is serious cast here, yeah. Jesus.
Wii Sports is fun.
It's a pretty fun game.
I like how it's like you swing the tennis racket.
I know, it's just like that.
We're taking a break now?
Yeah, we got
yes.
See you guys on the other side.
Oh, rock and roll, lock and load.
Weapons hot.
Video game.
This is the Idle Thumbs conf grenade. If you want to see your daughter again, bring the money to the bus station.
Jesus.
It's the kidnapper voice.
Oh, I know what it is.
That's what it sucks.
I don't need clarity.
That's how vague the kidnapper was. Bring the money to the bus station. What? How much money? What bus station?
This is my final communication. No! Goodbye.
You're a gun rack.
Also, he won't leave my final communication. No, goodbye. But I'm hanging up now.
No, you hang up.
What? This is terrible.
The best
junior high like boyfriend. Like, what is this?
The best.
Stop copying me.
It's terrible. No,
oh, man.
You do it, Steve. You make it do weird things. You make it feel funny.
It was the best, most terrifying version. Let's not put this in because I'm going to mention Far Cry 2. The best, most terrifying version of that is when you take the assassination missions in Far Cry 2 and you pick it up from the fucking tower and it's just like, and you're like,
That's fucking creepy.
It is. It's the creepiest version of that voice that I've ever heard, and it's impressive.
Yeah. So speaking of Far Cry 2,
I was hanging out with Clint Hawking, and we were talking about how cool he is and I am, and just normal stuff. Anyway,
famous gainer,
Phaedrus.
and we all have it in common, yeah. So
If you want to see Phaedrus, this is Phaedrus. If you want to see your daughter alive,
Phaedrus is really just the 2010 Zodiac.
she'll be delivered via rocket mail. Go to the nearest rocket mail stop.
I don't know what that is.
Goodbye. No, you hang up. Phaedrus out.
all right, this podcast is never going to work.
No, we're good. Phaedrus. All right. Can we call this episode Phaedrus 2010?
Yes.
Oh my god. Terrible. This is the worst episode we've ever made. And we haven't made it yet. Don't fall out of the fucking stool.
Let's try it. See where we can get to.
Video game.
So why do they call you famous, Sean?
They don't. That's funny you should mention
Oh,
that.
I thought they did. I thought your name was Famous Vanaman.
No, you guys call me that.
Well, because that's your name, right? I mean,
No.
That's
you
how
guys
you
just
were
call
introduced.
yeah. When
Oh, really?
when I
Was that
listened
was that on the
to
fact
Idle
sheet?
Thumbs Conf Grenade,
your
they
intern
called you
pulled
Idle. They thought Famous.
Oh, it was the 2010 episode.
Right.
Oh.
Video game. All right, so we're back with Sean Famous Vanaman.
Oh.
Hey, Famous.
Just going for
What's
it.
up, Boost? What are you doing?
You know, just doing a podcast. With,
Hey, Scoops. I
Famous.
just want to get on this.
Oh.
What's up, video games?
Video games.
It's terrible that
Man,
these
we're-
all exist.
We're the
Yeah.
worst. So, Famous, you were on a panel today.
Every time you call me Famous, we're just going to call you Boost.
All right, Famous.
Using the Royal Wii now, Famous?
Yeah, it was actually a Royal Wii.
I've looked up Royal Wii on the internet, and I'm pretty sure the Coen brothers invented that for The Big Lebowski.
No, they didn't.
Really?
No. They fucking didn't at all.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, no.
Coen brothers get no credit.
No.
It was on Wikipedia, so...
No,
The Royal Wii as a phrase definitely existed before 1996.
No, I understand the practice of royalty and certain other like classes of people using Wii to mean I.
Oh, but the phrase did as well.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was more dubious about, but all right.
What's up, famous?
Hey.
The Royal Wii.
The Royal Wii, yeah.
It still pleases me that in Google, that if I write hot scoo, I quickly get Steve Hot Scoop Scanner. That pleases me greatly.
I agree, famous.
It's the majestic plural.
That's what I thought. I don't think it's actually called the Royal Wii.
Oh, look.
All right.
Look for first known usage of phrase Royal Wii.
The Royal Wii, it's the royal pronoun, the Royal Wii or the Victorian Wii. But yeah, it is referred to as the Royal Wii.
Okay, fine. I submit.
To the wiki.
All right, we're back with Sean, famous Vanaman.
Oh.
I know, I'm not thrilled he's here either.
Yeah. But you set up a microphone for me, which was nice.
I did. So, famous, you were on a panel today with Tim Schafer.
I was.
And Rihanna Pratchett.
Yes.
And jokes.
Someone else or just
John Teddy from the AV Club. He's the AV Club.
He was a moderator, right?
Yeah, he was the moderator. Okay. He was a great dude. I can't say enough.
So what did you guys talk about?
Talked about writing jokes in games and comedy in games in general.
Was it writing jokes in games or was it writing...
No, it was
just about comedy writing.
It wasn't actually about
jokes. Well, no, but I mean, I didn't intend that.
It was about like gags,
pretty much.
Well, because I think
it was about 90s dog.
Well,
it was
the reason I ask is because comedy writing in games is not actually all that common, and so
that's why there's a panel about.
But there are jokes in games a lot.
They found the only 3 ones that could talk about that do it.
Yeah. And again, I think Jake is probably better to talk about the moment to moment of it because I was really like this deer in the headlights for most of it.
Yeah, you actually apologized at one point for, being insecure.
Yeah, I went on this really weird. It was funny because I started talking and I wasn't talking about being insecure in front of them because I was talking about like being an insecure writer. How
that's the most really recursive apology.
But I like bumped my microphone while I got up, so it was like the feedback, and I walked off.
That sounds like
like one dude clapped in the background,
and then everyone slowly started joining in and standing up.
Like 2 guys did, and then they realized that it wasn't catching on, and Sean was in a taxi out of the
yeah. In a heap of tears.
Yeah, I heard it went well, but that sounds like it went better than I could have expected.
Yeah, no, it really went on without a hitch. Yeah.
I thought that was you, like, getting in on the fact that Sean left the panel and that that went better than you would have expected.
That's exactly what he was saying.
That's what he was saying.
Oh,
that is the joke.
And then I gave him a snarky laugh and he looked at me like I was a douche and I didn't know what to do. You ruined me, Steve. I'm ruined.
It's the normal way I look at you, Jake.
But yeah, I mean, comedy in games is not common-ish at all. But that was actually the first. I thought John did a good job of that being sort of the first question was sort of like comedy as genre. And we all had very different opinions multiple times about that, which was cool because...
it was a nice panel because you guys didn't actually see eye to eye on almost anything in the panel.
But we didn't argue.
But you didn't argue about it.
Yeah.
You just sort of said things.
We just sort of had different perspectives, I think. And that's definitely a byproduct of who we are in the industry,
Such as what?
Well, I'm sort of just like, staff
famous
dude. Yeah. Staff writer.
Yeah. But I mean, you've written for a lot of well-known and loved characters.
Right, but like Tim
is the god
company.
Well, right. I know.
And then Rihanna Pratchett is a contract writer who comes in to, be a writer on an existing project.
Are you dressing me down?
Listen,
video games?
Christ, Steve. They're blatantly in 3 different positions in the industry.
I agree with that.
It makes sense.
I'm with you.
Think about it.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus.
But that clearly tinted our opinions.
It was hilarious because of that.
That made it really funny.
Laugh, you bastard.
Come on. Look out
this shit
make
is
him
funny.
laugh. Comedy writing in games. What?
Tim is very much of at least the opinion he expressed, which also, now that I've been on a panel, I want to say, like, the opinion you express very boldly in front of, I don't know how many people fit in that room.
May not represent your actual opinion.
Yeah, you say these things and you're like, I kind of believe that, but it's not necessarily.
You feel compelled to say something authoritatively, but in reality, in a conversation with someone, you might be much less hard line about it.
Tim basically opened that conversation with, I have always sort of hoped that there would be a breakout comedy game, sort of so that a comedy genre in gaming would be established, and then people in boardrooms would be like, well, that comedy game made $1 billion, so we need to start funding games with humor in them.
Which Rihanna and I didn't necessarily agree. I mean,
what does he mean by comedy genre? Because game genres are usually not.
I just think that's
comedy
dumb.
itself being a unique selling point of the game.
People will go see a comedy film. Like people, his argument was people would go see a film specifically because it is a humorous film.
Right, but I mean, yeah, I understand that, but
comedy being valued as a unique selling point.
Sure. Like I feel like if you set up
the genre is probably not
we're
the
going to
most
write a
accurate
comedy
term
game.
in that.
Well, I don't know if he actually even said that word.
If that's a top-down directive, like we're going to write a comedy game, you're quickly going to get a bad Leisure Suit Larry game. You know, like it's just going to be jokes and jokes and jokes. Where like, I mean, Psychonauts is right there, right on the shelf. Sorry, this is radio. But that game is very funny, but like, there's still like of consequence. You know, and like. There are movies that are very funny, but they're like a romance or they're a friendship drama or they're, you know what I mean? It's like comedy is just the thing that like keeps you going moment to moment. And that's really what I believe. It's like Monkey Island is a game. Tales of Monkey Island is about like trust, these relationships that Guybrush has with people who are very close to him and how they get strained. But then, you know.
But it's also a million jokes.
Then he jokes about leg sweating. And things like this.
Well,
he's a leg sweater. He's a total leg sweater. I didn't know that.
That's something that I think is always
hold
done.
His breath for 10 minutes,
but his legs are sweaty while he does it.
Yeah,
creepy.
That's something that I think has always done a disservice to people's memories of or descriptions of old LucasArts games in particular. Oftentimes, you read stories by people in writing for game websites or whatever, especially when. A game is reissued or a remake is made, and they're like,
"For a laugh a minute."
Yeah, these games were just packed to the walls with guffaws and just laugh riot, and this was the funniest game, declaring it the funniest game ever made. And it's, I mean, those games had a lot of funny things in them, but they didn't exist just for the purpose of having you laugh your ass off. And anyone who says they fell out of their chair laughing when they played Monkey Island 1 is probably either making that up or like just not remembering very well.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
they're horrible.
Or they're awful
or
people.
They're lying, right, yeah.
You know, because that's not what the experience of playing those games was at all. The humor was like almost greasing the wheels. It wasn't... You know, it wasn't the engine. I mean,
the engine of 1 is like, oh, I'm this guy who like, it's a very pure desire. Like, I'm an adolescent. I want to be
I like how
something.
you just said of 1, because that reminds me of in The Sopranos where they just use shorthand of in 1 to like to indicate they're talking about Godfather.
Oh. Yeah, well, yeah. In 1,
you're the guy who works for the adventure game company. It's yeah, man. I mean, back in 1.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. It's the exact same. Yeah. And except we don't. Yeah.
Also, the thing that's kind of interesting, I think, maybe about that is that like Tim Schafer advocating for comedy being kind of the focus of the game and possibly giving rise to more like comedy games. Maybe the best stuff he's done in his career is his least like overtly comedic. Yeah, like
sure.
Full Throttle
Absolutely.
and Grim
there's
Fandango.
Like 5 jokes in Full Throttle, if that maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff in Full Throttle,
yeah.
and a lot of it is kind of absurd. But it isn't like. I mean,
there are comic relief characters in that game.
Yeah,
it's a noir film in the desert.
It does also have to be said that was like one single thing that Tim said that we're using in isolation, and it was like the first thing
that's funny.
Well, that's exactly what Famous was saying about the idea of the things you say on a panel.
Oh yeah, of course.
Thanks, and I mean that happens to me on this fucking podcast, and this podcast isn't even important.
But I mean, to be fair, I've heard Tim Schafer say that before in interviews.
Oh, I know.
Years ago.
But I mean,
it's definitely a thing.
Agreeing almost for the rest of the thing.
It did, yeah.
Like after that, we were really like
high
high-fiving.
I mean, obviously, like a lot of Monkey Island was talked about because there were 2 people on the panel that worked on a Monkey Island game. But
I didn't realize it's like obviously you don't not think about that going in.
Yeah.
But like up until we're both sitting there being like, so Guybrush, we've both written for Guybrush. I didn't realize like it was happening. You know what I mean? It's like oh, that was kind of a cool thing for me personally, especially going into Monkey Island. And I mean, we can both talk about this a little bit. We think of the sensibilities of the people who worked on that game. But my direct Grossman when I was starting on that title.
David Grossman
of a guy who's at Telltale and also worked on Monkey Island.
He is our creative director and worked on Monkey Island and Day of the Tentacle with Tim. But he said, hey, like something Tim did on Monkey Island was kind of bring that sort of like that edge to Guybrush, where he just kind of does asshole things sometimes and says kind of mean things. And it's a bad thing to say, but Guybrush is an asshole for a lot of that game.
No, that's a really important part of that character.
Yeah, and I think the Tails was sort of not there yet. He wasn't doing that in the first few episodes, and he's like, I would like you to try to do that. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, I'll just... And it was neat kind of sitting
when
next
Dave's
to
like, I want you to write like Tim Schafer for this game.
Yeah, I just slunk back to my desk and I was like,
when Dave Grossman walks up to you and tells you to write like Tim Schafer, it's like, well, okay.
I'll do my best,
do that
sir.
for you now.
Oh, yeah, I'll just...
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. I was kind
of... on the other hand, saying make the character more of a dick, I think
it's also fun, though.
It's pretty... That's a pretty followable piece of direction.
Yeah. Because I would say, like, in that episode, like... That's when he just starts fucking over.
Marek looks like he's in a fucking opium coma right now.
I know.
Marek's really into this talk.
Oh, but the thing that I was going to bring up is that just it wasn't all just about
this
jokes
is
and
the
jokes
greatest
and jokes.
podcast, Marek says.
The stuff in Psychonauts about where you sort of flip underneath the world and you end up seeing all the crazy dark stuff and how that game will have all these jokes and then occasionally just sucker punch you with a piece of drama. Like that came up as a theme in that talk as well. Not in terms of Psychonauts in general, but just that's how good comedy tends to work.
Something that I was going to ask about, I didn't make it to the panel either because I'm a dick.
Yeah. Okay, though.
So true, God.
Yeah. Well, you know, I didn't think I could fit in the room with your ego, famous. It's gone to your head, all this fame.
I've actually just floated above everybody.
But the actual thing is that, like, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, was though there are not very many games that are sold outright as being a comedy game and you should come to this game for comedy, I think that funny things happening in games is actually a really big draw for a lot of games, especially like open world games, for instance. Like if you look at at all the stuff they're showing for like Just Cause 2 right now and other games like Mercenaries or the Grand Theft Auto games or whatever, it's like you know those videos that we've seen that's whatever it's called,
GTA Badassery. That's different though.
Yeah, but I mean a lot of those situations are funny, right? Like
it's ridiculous shit.
Yeah. And it's because like you just go into this place where a bunch of unexpected events will happen and they make you laugh your ass off, and you go into that game trying to find just crazy shit that's going to happen, and it's really funny.
It's not I still feel those systems are built in earnest.
Right.
You know,
well, I mean, one of those stalker stories I told last week was like that, where I ran into this place and there was a monster, and I ran the other direction and it was bandits, and it was fucking Scooby-Doo Hotel Land.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like that was hilarious to me.
It's like when that's disconnected from the sort of like the tonal thrust of the game, that pisses me off, actually. Well, like, it's funny, and, like, I mean, I watched you guys play Army of Two the 40th day, like, that one morning we were over here playing Imperial. And,
it's good cat noise.
Like...
It's kind of good.
It's no bird noise. But, like, you guys joke, and you guys are having the best time playing that game. But, like... I don't play games like that. I was just like, oh, God. And you're just like continually running into a wall. And you're like, where's the button? Where's the button? Look at all these animations. When I like throw them all together, he looks ridiculous. And you laugh and you guys are having a great time. Like, oh, this is a great comedy game for you guys. Well, but I just want to like eat a bullet because I hate
I do think that's
that.
Different, though. Because, I mean, if you...
I play GTA 4 like I'm acting. Like, I don't go do stupid stuff. Like, for the first hour of that game, I was like stopping at stoplights.
But I mean, I think that, I think even then,
I actually was really into that in GTA 4 as well.
Yeah, but
like slowing down to pay the bridge toll. And
but even if you don't play GTA 4, for instance, to make jokes out of it, like just in the course of playing the game, it's like all that the shit that's funniest about games like that is best laid plans stuff, right? Where you're like you're trying to pull off. Your mission, you're trying to get away from the cops, and you ramp over something and run into something else and flip on something and land on a dude, and it ends up being hilarious.
When the game ends up supporting that by a passerby in the street, I'm going, that shit's ridiculous. That's when it's completely amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
always,
and that is actually something that Tim brought up. I think it was in the fourth Metal Gear.
And I told this... Oh, yeah, in the fourth Metal Gear.
He was talking about how if you point the camera at the cleavage of another character...
the fourth Metal Gear. Do you mean Metal Gear Solid 4?
Sorry, Metal Gear Solid 4.
Okay.
Whatever. He was talking about... I think it was 4. He was talking about...
It was a Metal Gear.
It was one of the more recent Metal Gear Solid games. He was talking about pointing the camera at the cleavage of a supporting character, and if you leave it there for a certain amount of time, that character will just be like, enjoying the view, or like, what are you looking at, or something? And he was just like, oh fuck. And that's
now we know Tim Schafer looks at video games.
He said that
boobs.
a friend of his was doing it.
Oh, sure they were.
But that's my favorite thing in those GTA 4 montages is when like when cars explode and people are freaked out by stuff, there's weird NPC barks, and when that stuff happens because you've caused it, it's always way more rewarding than when the game doesn't notice that you've made horrible mayhem.
Although sometimes
which is
they're
totally
just
writing in
sequiturs.
Yeah, and I think that's where the two come together. Is that like if the game was incredibly self-serious, just like 100%, then it wouldn't be as funny. You would see something crazy happen, but there needs to be kind of that tone of this stuff's ridiculous, and GTA 4 especially,
or even just this moment's ridiculous because
but it makes it doesn't shut down the ridiculousness of something that happens by like trying to take itself too seriously. I don't know. Yeah, so I think tone and unexpected things happening in games like allows comedy to arise in a way that isn't necessarily look at this comedy game, play this game because it's so funny. But people play it that way anyway because they know that stuff happens. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think I don't want to start marketing games as funny too either. I think that's bad. I think you should just market I think Psychonauts is a good example of a game where this should have been marketed as a kid runs away from the circus to join a psychic summer camp or to join a psychic soldier.
I don't think that's.
I think what Psychonauts should have been marketed is go enter people's brains, set things on fire, levitate shit. Invade people's minds and jump on shit. I mean, I think Psychonauts. I think you should market it in terms of the active verbs that you do in a game.
They should have looked forward into the future into how they marketed BioShock, basically, and then marketed it that way. Right? I mean, it's no, but I mean, BioShock was entirely marketed on those terms. They didn't sell that game by talking about the incredible atmosphere and this amazing arc of this man Andrew Ryan. I mean, they sold that game by talking about all the things you as a character as a player can do in terms of. I mean,
if your game has a bunch of unique, really cool sounding active verbs, that is exactly how you should sell your game.
Exactly.
When you press a button, what crazy shit happens that you can't do in a game?
So I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, God, you fucking idiot. Why were you even on that panel or on this podcast?
I'm so
famous
sorry.
Vanaman, more like
retarded Vanaman.
I heard it was a really good
more
panel.
like that.
It is quite similar too. I actually told your story.
Oh, really?
I mentioned you, not by name. That would have been strange.
He said Hot
Scoops.
You
just said Hot Scoops.
Yeah, so my pal Hot Scoops was
hot.
playing Brütal Legend, and then Tim immediately was like, please. Oh, he's like, is this a bug? And I was like, no. But I told the story about you peeling all on that dude's face.
Yeah.
What? It got a good laugh. So that was
really?
So why don't you tell Steve your story?
Yeah,
Steve was playing Brütal Legend.
Scoops was playing Brütal Legend.
Hot Scoops.
Isn't it terrible when you're trying to tell a story and people just keep yelling your
God, I know
your idle thumbs
horrible name BM Bronstring.
We've brute forced your nickname on this.
My thumbs.
I did the most unfamous stuff today.
Yeah, I was telling you I think it was must have been before your panel since you mentioned it that Brütal Legend has a bunch of great lines and acting and improvisation and everything, but the funniest and most memorable thing that happened to me in that game was just again something that kind of arose out of the fact that you have this car that has physics. It's like this hot rod with these big ass wheels on the back, and there are these big huge hulking guys that have the giant fists that run around that are enemies. And at some point I was in the hot rod. And I started to back up, and when I started to back up, the camera turned around, and I saw there was one of these giant guys behind me, and so I just backed up far enough that the physics made my back tire go up onto his face as he was standing there, and I hit the gas and it peels out on his face, and escape, and I was like, that's hilarious. And yeah, and it's a very different thing than a well-crafted and acted line, but it makes an impact on the player because it's so unique to their own experience, with the system.
Would you have been pleased if the game had been prepared for that and actually had
my face?
Right, if the guy had been like, fuck, as your car was driving away.
My beautiful face.
Would that have made you more happy or less happy?
I would have been totally cool with that.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with you that supporting that and recognizing it, you always want to acknowledge the player doing stuff in your game.
I'll just keep bringing up things that Tim said, apparently.
Yeah, because he did say that. Yeah.
But he said
completely.
He said, in his point of view at least, and it's a thing that I think is interesting, especially for a game like Brütal Legend, is that regardless of the actual quality of your AI in terms of it being sort of an artificial brain that can interpret your actions as a player, or that it can think for itself. Rather, what is important is that it pretends that it knows what you're doing by having things to account for all the weird shit you do, which is a thing that's pretty much all adventure games are. So, and that's the thing that he tried to do with Psychonauts pretty hard. But I think that's like, if you can think of make a guy scream when you peel out on his face,
right?
You think that there might be a more intelligent system behind that than there actually is.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things I saw in the Grand Theft Auto 4 Badassery series, which we talked about a long time ago on Untitled Chapter, and I still don't know if this was supported intentionally or as a result of some other like NPC system, was like just this, you know, I don't even remember what led to this, but it was just one of the big fucking pile-ups where fucking cars are falling on top of pedestrians and everything's fucking exploding and just going crazy. And then this lady walks by and just like in the most ultra Brooklyn accent, she's just like, "That looks expensive."
Oh yeah.
And it's one of the funniest fucking things I had heard in ages.
Yeah.
And I have no idea like what that was actually in response to, but the fact that it coincided with this,
right?
Like, this
I think it was probably the two cars crashed into each other event.
And she's like, "That's a fender bender." That looks like
Right. But instead, every car in New York.
Well, yeah, and I mean, some of that stuff is super, super specific, where they were just searching for very specific cases, where like there was like, you know, a guy can commit a crime and a cop goes after him, and if the cop finds him, he like leads him back to his car at gunpoint, you know. And I saw this happen a few times, and I was like, I don't know what happens if I kind of fuck with these guys. And so like a cop was doing that, and I rolled my car up real slow and just kind of like bumped him. And
which guy?
The cop. And so he like stumbles and like drops his gun or whatever.
Like,
and then the guy, the criminal goes, "Thanks, buddy," and runs away. and I did it a couple more times, and there were additional barks of him being like, "Thanks a lot, bro," and like,
"Thanks, bro."
Yeah, and so like they caught the case.
Drop that retard.
So they caught the case of, you know, guy gets
right. It's gotta be one of those things where just when playtesting, you're like, "Oh, I wonder if I can do this." Oh shit. Okay. Write that one down.
We'll write a line for that.
Yeah. It almost makes you just want to walk behind playtesters with a notebook. Yeah.
Right.
And that is kind of
stupid shit people do.
Yeah, and that's kind of the, you know, the that's where you really nail it, when you are like, we'll put something, a little thing to acknowledge you did something awesome.
It's such a good reward when you do something stupid and hilarious, and then the game's like, yeah, please do more of these things.
Yeah, right.
Because you will in fact find more of the game by doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, good panel.
Yeah.
Good job, Famous.
Got some reader mails?
Sure.
We got a lot of reader mail, actually.
Yeah, we have a ton of reader mail.
Sucks.
You suck. You're the worst guy.
You fucking bastard.
Stop sending stuff.
I was telling Steve he was a bastard, not the readers.
Oh, no, but he said the worst. And I said, well, it's good that they send things, right?
Fred Zeleny
I'm
writes,
just visiting. Don't listen to me. I'll be gone tomorrow.
Oh, this is a really good email. Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Except
I tried.
Don't oversell it.
Okay.
This is the best email
what a shitty
ever
email I'm
sent
about to read. Jesus.
From
Dear the Idle
Vanaman.
Thumbs Game Gold Pod Boost. Unexpected.
That's the best one now.
I always read that because it always causes Steve
Steve
to
hates when a joke is made in an email.
That doesn't
you want
count
all
as a
the
joke.
jokes. That was a great joke.
Dear reader, that was probably pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so here's the email that's actually
Scoop's Gold Blast Pod.
An
face.
unexpectedly touching moment in a game, he says. I ran a pickup group through a heroic dungeon, and at first, I assume he's talking about World of Warcraft, and at first I thought one of the players was just a jerk because he was talking about nonsense and being chatty in a way that sounds like sarcastic jerkiness. I was brushing him off and ignoring him, and then one of the random players whispered to tell me that he and the other players were all actually a family that played together. He explained that the chatty player, his son, was a special needs kid. Suddenly, everything clicked, and I realized he wasn't actually being sarcastic at all. After every boss, he asked if he had won, and when we beat the last boss, the warlock, his mother, said, "Okay, say thank you to the tank," and the hunter said, "Thank you, tank." It was a better reward than any sort of loot. Maybe I'm particularly susceptible to it because I grew up playing video games with my own parents. I learned a lot of vocabulary on my father's knee as he played Infocom games with me. So while I've always known the benefits of family gaming and how empowering it can be for a kid to be on a level playing field with his parents, I hadn't ever actually seen it in action from the outside. It was really heartwarming. With games like BioShock 2 and Heavy Rain dealing with stories involving family matters and parent-child relationships, the last place I expected to find a heartwarming family story was from a bunch of orcs in World of Warcraft. Great to hear on the air again. Insert reference here, Fred Zeleny.
That's the nicest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's totally adorable.
That's really nice.
That's awesome.
Do you guys have memories of playing video games with your parents at all?
Absolutely not.
My parents don't even know what I do. Yeah,
my parents vaguely. Yeah, no, I was not allowed to have video games as a kid.
Jeez.
That's why I'm a PC gamer, by the way.
I didn't play a whole lot of games with my parents, but my dad I guess when he was working in San Francisco in the late 70s and early 80s, played the Star Wars arcade game. So he took my brother and I to play the Star Wars arcade game a few times, and he played Pilot Wings with us.
Nice.
Those are the two games that my
game.
dad thought were cool.
Yeah, I had a good the phrase of that guy that Fred Zeleny in his email mentioned that was like giving a child and parent a way to be kind of like on an even playing field thing. Like it makes me think my dad and I played like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego together, like when I was 7 or whatever, and he would like help me figure it out, but not just like steamroll it, right. and so like he let me feel smart and like look up stuff to figure out the puzzles, and we kind of like were figuring that stuff out together. It made me feel like, oh man, me and my dad are both working on a problem together, and it makes you feel better as a kid because
Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego is such a gold game.
That was a good game.
Yeah.
Gone gold game.
Yeah, and
It was like that.
we had awesome like he business dude went on business trips a lot and stuff, and we would like play Carmen Sandiego over the phone. Like I would have like a corded phone,
That's the best.
and I had learned enough to read or whatever when I was like 7. I would like tell him what the clue was, and I don't know. Yeah, Carmen Sandiego was a good dad game in the 80s.
That's awesome.
In the event, I need to just clarify, my parents know what I do. If my mom were to listen to this podcast, which is not outside the realm of something she would do,
God. I don't want
she
a
needs to
mom
know that, Mom, I love you, and I know you know what I do. And my dad and I play duck hunt together, and we have a great family. But I picture that family like The Incredibles almost. It's very cool that it just flat. You know what I mean? It's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Mrs. Vanaman, horse bag.
Oh, what does that mean?
Oh.
What does that mean?
Nothing.
My mother. What does it mean?
It's a peripheral for the Nintendo Wii.
How to get burned.
For riding a horse. How to get burned?
I just fell into the idle thumb pit of reference. I'm just being stabbed with sharp sticks.
Keep your stupid mask.
Me and my mom actually just fell into a horrible pit of reference, and I'm just trying to protect her from pain.
So anyway, this next email
kill you.
probably about feces.
With a hat on it.
Dear Idle Thumbs, I'm taking a poo.
What? Oh man, we had so
you totally nailed it. Wow, how did you know?
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. That's not
All
what
right.
it says.
Charlie writes,
We
welcome
talked
back.
about poo a lot earlier today.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that, Jake. Why did what?
Famous poo.
Your own poo?
No. Oh, that's funny. Oh,
See
man.
what you did there? And that
You walked
we
me
can't
right
talk
in.
about that.
We're done.
You walk yourself right into that. All right. Charlie writes, welcome back, Thumbs. Video games crossing into reality. Welcome back after your absence from the world of pods feels strange. Okay, well, he goes on about that for a while. Anyway, I have a story about playing video games far too long and changing how you view the world. Plenty of people have had the I should steal a car thing happen after too much GTA. But my rational decision-making breakdown... What, you haven't had that?
No, I've never stolen a car.
I've never stolen a car.
wanted
That's
to.
not the point, is that you
but it's
actually steal a car.
The two ones that are cited all the time are, I could steal that car and run that light, or I bet I could pick that up with my Katamari that is my car.
Yeah. I definitely had
I
both
can take
of
out those parking
yeah,
meters.
for sure.
Okay.
I could roll those up.
Anyway.
I
so-
can roll that up into my
I
life.
didn't mean to be contrarian.
Yeah, well, yeah. So this is not the experience that guy had, but he's referencing it for kind of a baseline here. So he says, my rational decision-making breakdown happened after too much Doom. I mean, Doom 1 as a kid in the 90s. I'd been playing for hours and hours with the clipping shut off. Ids popid, whatever the code was. Realizing I was starving, I stumbled upstairs to the kitchen to grab a snack from the cupboard. As I stood in front of it, I actually had this thought process. Man, I should open this cupboard and grab some Doritos. But wait, the clipping is shut off. I don't need to open the door after all. Whereupon I smashed my hand into the cupboard door, bruising it extremely badly and waking up my parents in the process.
Video games don't cause violent behavior.
Yeah, let's just keep that email away from guys like Jack Thompson and things like this.
I think that guy's in jail now or something.
He's
don't think he's
disbarred.
in
No, he got
jail.
disbarred in
Wow.
Florida.
I think he was shanked.
He was disbarred, though. That's a fact.
He was disbarred.
Yeah.
Chalk one up for video games.
Disbarred that guy.
He actually did basically just disbar himself by throwing his body against the rocks of video games for years.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Is it?
No. It's too bad for video games, Rodkin.
Stephen Lavington writes, Dear Idle Thumbs podcast, not a dream or a case of someone assaulting me because of your show, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Way back in the days with the original NES, I played Super Mario Bros. 3 for so long, squinting at a shitty 13-inch screen television, that I actually became nauseous. Even today, if I see any 8-bit style graphics like the 8-bit version of Left 4 Dead, I get ill and headachy. Do any of you guys have Pavlovian type reactions as a result of video games? Cheers, Steve Lavington. I don't know if any of you actually do, but I figured it out.
I had a weird experience with that today that I can actually share about GDC.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So
Whenever I go to GDC, I vomit all over the place. Signed to Tim Langdell.
Wow.
That guy was at GDC, by the way.
I know.
Yeah,
He went to like indie game stuff, and I bet he was popular.
I'm buying that trademark.
But Ian Bogost, who's like a games researcher, academic kind of guy, has made a number of games, and the one that he was showing at the Independent Games Festival at GDC was a game called The Slow Year, which is like he actually programmed it for the Atari like 2600 or whatever, and printed on the cartridges and the whole thing. But it's like there are 4 seasons, and each season is a different game that is about just sort of like meditatively like waiting for stuff to happen and like moving slowly and everything. It's a very like tone, like slow down and whatever. And so one of the games was it was summer, and there's like a rainstorm, and the goal of the game is supposed to be simulating like you're watching a thunderstorm and lightning happens, and then you're kind of trying to predict how long it's going to take for the thunder to for the thunderclap to follow it. And so you're supposed to wait for lightning in the game and then press the button when you think the thunder will start. And so I was waiting, and there's like a long gap between the lightning and everything, and I'm waiting and staring at it and stuff, and then the lightning happens, and I try to jam the button as quickly as I can, like in time with the lightning. And I'm like, video games trained me to do that. I was supposed to wait and do it when the thunder's supposed to come. But apparently it's just like, I'm in the mindset of video game, and when thing happens on screen, you're supposed to react as quickly as possible. Yeah, and so I definitely was Pavlovian in that sense. It was just like, flash, press button. No, bad brain. Hate you, video games.
Yeah.
It was a very
video
concrete
games
thing.
do turn us into twitchy, fucking nervous assholes. It's really horrible.
I don't know about anybody else.
I don't really have anything like that.
I like your story though.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
a
a
good
good story.
All right.
Crummy writes.
There you go, Charlie.
Yeah.
That was a story for you,
Good
Charlie.
with name remembering. That's 2 for 2.
Yeah, you're 2 for 2. Fred Zolny, Charlie.
Famous.
Old 2 for 2 for they call you.
Crummy writes, brief stalker experience. High thumbs. Short stalker cop experience. Wow, that's a cool acronym. I just loaded up the game and tried. That's stalker.
I was
Call of
totally on
Pripyat.
a different page. Like, I stalker the game. Sorry, I was like, I thought he was just stalking somebody or had been stalked in real life. But
Crazy stalker
I'm sorry, I
experience.
didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me.
Nick Brecken followed me.
I was hoping you'd keep going.
I wasn't.
It was funny that I like that you disclaimed it like 4 times. I was hoping you'd continue if I didn't interrupt you.
No, I'm
But
done.
you didn't. You didn't amuse me enough. So he says, I just loaded up the game and tried to speak to the very first NPC I met. Of course, you're just thrust into the radioactive wilderness without a guide or hint, and so when he demands I lower my weapon, I fumble around on my keyboard to do so until I hit the G key, which happens to drop my AK-47 on the ground. As I realize what I've done, he casually saunters over, picks up my weapon, and walks away. Oh,
And they're like, hey, wait.
What's the button to say give it back? I'm now all
That's
alone in the
awesome.
aforementioned radioactive wilderness, except now I don't have a weapon. I ended up finding a crappy pistol, and I tried to shoot him in the head to retrieve my weapon, upon which I was jumped by all of his friends who came out of nowhere, and I was forced to reload my game after they slaughtered me. Anyway, keep on casting. Love what you guys do, Crummy. That's a good story.
The number of stories of people who are just brutalized in Stalker is really exciting to me.
But that's hilarious, though. Like,
Drop your weapon.
because
Thanks.
that's like
what?
because he's fumbling around. It's like this guy's like, lower your weapon, and you're like, wait, what? I don't understand. And then you like drop it, and he just picks it up and leaves. That's really funny to me.
Yeah.
Because I can totally imagine that like happening in the world.
But I love that behavior in the game.
Yeah, me
that,
too.
like, guys actually seek out things that are useful to them.
Well, remember the time you sold a dude a weapon?
Yeah.
And as soon
That
as
was
you
great.
sold it, he just like immediately equipped it. He's like, yeah, this is better.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna use this.
It was awesome because he had like some shitty pistol, and I was like, "Oh, I don't need this shotgun," and sold it to him. And we exit like the vending screen, and he just like pulls out shotgun. Yeah, because you don't see that in games, but it totally makes sense.
Right,
It felt really
just
logical.
disappearing into the store mechanic and not actually into that guy's inventory.
But he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is a sweet shotgun."
Yeah. I mean, if you sell a bunch of stuff to someone and then kill him, all that stuff will be on him. Like it's his. Yeah.
Wow.
That makes me want that game to just have like 2 or 3 notable hats
That could just pass around the game.
Right. So if you get a weird,
someone could totally mod that. I mean, that would be a totally.
It would be really amusing.
Thing.
Yeah. If you got you gave someone just a really extreme yellow like ear flap hat, and then you just that would just sort of trade throughout the world.
Oh yeah.
So like you give that to the guy who's like, oh man. Boop.
Yeah.
And then like 4 hours later, you see just some fat dude walking around with his hat on.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. That would be a totally doable mod. I would love to see that.
Because I don't know if those guys actually simulate them trading with each other.
No, but you could probably hack that in. Yeah.
Because I mean, there was a sort of similar thing, not with that chaining thing, but in Fallout 3 with your like squad members, like they were just pack mules for you, but they would use the best thing in their inventory. So I have like, they don't have any helmet or whatever, and I give them like Thomas Jefferson's wig just to hold on to for me, and I look back and they've just got a powdered wig on.
Yeah, that's all I have. That's great.
Video games are good.
Keeps my head warm. Shut up.
This will be Jake's favorite email. Phil Guy writes, to the Idle Thumbs podcast.
Oh, classic.
Great day, guys. Whatever. On a bizarre note, Jake, you look an awful lot like my favorite musician, Stan Rogers. At least you do in the photo in the Idle Thumbs episode 50 blog post. That's about it.
So what he means is that guy looks like David Cage.
Yeah. I don't know anything. I don't know if that's like complimentary or what. Like I just want one more thing introduced that Jake apparently looks like.
I look like everything apparently.
Big Bird, Max Headroom, David Cage, and video games.
He didn't send a comparison photograph like with David Cage?
No, I don't know. The
link.
Maybe.
Come on, Phil.
Well, I don't look like that guy.
Yeah, if you're going to say that Jake looks like someone, at least send photographic evidence.
Yeah. If that's the case, this will always be included in the blog, but otherwise I won't believe it.
Okay. Shay Pierce writes, Cold War strategy game. In the Scoops Horn episode, you guys say that a strategy game about the Cold War would be sweet. Chris Crawford made this game. It's Balance of Power, and if you haven't played it, I'm pretty sure there's a version around that's playable on modern Windows PCs. You should play it. It's very cool, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. It's very different from most games. It's like playing a bunch of menus, which sounds boring, but it's actually quite engrossing. Love the cast. You guys are the ginkiest. Shay.
That sound that you hear is Nick Brecken downloading that game.
Yeah. No, that's
I've definitely heard of that.
I've heard of that game for sure. I've never played it. I'm sort of slightly a little too late for a lot of the Chris Crawford stuff.
The other thing that you guys could play is Shadow President, because it also is I think that's what it's called. It's a similar, like, you are essentially controlling all of the kind of stuff that's totally unacknowledged during the Cold War, and trying to be successful, but like you can just fail and end up with a nuclear war.
Right.
Because of all the stuff that normal people don't even know about that was happening during the Cold War, and shit just silently spiraling out of control and ending in catastrophe. Yeah. I think that stuff was a lot easier to make game mechanics out of when the games were essentially all text.
Right.
Like it's much harder to turn that into like units, or whatever. Yeah.
No, that's true. That was an advantage in a sense those games had when it came to that kind of representation. Aaron Meldrum, this is another Call Pripyat story if you guys have the patience for that.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Another stalker story.
Okay.
Aaron Meldrum writes, Hey, the Idle Thumbs podcast. I've enjoyed your discussion about Call Pripyat and find my reaction and impressions of the game are following a very similar arc to yours. But one thing I think that gets lost in a lot of discussions of the emergent gameplay mechanics are some really interesting emergent storytelling instances. One good example happened as I was out looking for tools to upgrade my weapons. 10 or so hours into the game, I spotted a warehouse on the map that looked like it could be a good place to look, so I took off. As I trekked the distance over there and began to draw near, I noticed there were bodies everywhere. I hadn't remembered any recent emissions, so the only thing I could conclude was that there was some firefight that had left them there. Not knowing if anyone was left, I began to creep through the multitudes of crates as cover while I worked my way through the main building. Upon reaching the warehouse and looking inside, I realized something. This was the same place where I saved a guy from a bunch of bandits much earlier. It was pitch black when I busted him out before, so I was only able to recognize the place by the lights inside the warehouse. I then had a rapid series of thoughts going back from weird, I'm back here, to wow, I wonder how this all happened. And then I realized there actually hadn't been a shootout since I was last here. It was me that had killed all these people.
I am the murderer. I looked down, there's blood on my hands.
This was oddly affecting, making me feel both like a badass and also just an ass, because it was a lot of guys. What struck me as so interesting about it was the reason it managed to be such an effective plot twist for me was that it was the result of a bunch of random decisions I'd made and founded my circumstances I found myself in earlier. If I'd even had night vision when I had done the mission the first time, the experience would have ended up being completely different. It was an interesting experience that hit me in a rather different way than a lot of the more gameplay-centric mechanics that result from the systems. I thought it was a cool story, and I've really enjoyed hearing other people's stories from the game, so I wanted to share. Glad you guys are back, and keep on casting your pods, Aaron, Marilyn. P.S. I still didn't find any tools.
I love that story. Like,
very good story.
The thing, because, I mean, you can totally imagine how that would translate to like an actual film, you know, where it's like there's some guy who's just like desperately fighting with like, you know, a flashlight attached to his pistol or something, and just like, you know, shooting at attackers that he doesn't really have, you know, like a full idea of how many people there are, or what the outcome really is.
He's being purely reactive.
Yeah, and then it's in the dark and it's just kind of silent, and he's like, I guess there's nobody else here, leaves, and then, you know, comes back
in the daylight
or when the electricity's back on or whatever, and it's just kind of like really like you know, like unnerved by all of the destruction that he caused by surviving. You know, and that's what happened to this player. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah It's also cool because I know the part he's talking about, and I did it a totally different way. I just came in like the back. I like climbed over a fence and like went into this room where, you can't really climb a fence, but I jumped on boxes and then you know what I mean? Like, it's a video game. And I went over this fence and I just went into the back room and like killed one guard outside and went into this room where this guy was and just like went out again. Whereas this guy just sort of blindly charged in through the front, just murdering everybody. Basically. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really awesome thing.
Man, speaking of the emissions, I have a really cool small moment as well. That's just like attention to detail. But like we were saying, there are these emissions that are like radiation storms in the game that you have to hide from by going inside a building, and like the other AIs in the world also try to hide inside the buildings, like, you know, the bandits and stuff like that. But there are also other things that are AIs that aren't really intelligent that are in the world, you know? And one time I went inside, you know, and an emission was coming. I went inside this abandoned factory, waited out the emission, and then I came back outside and I looked on the ground. I was like, what is that? And there were like just dead crows like lying on the ground outside of the warehouse, and I was like, oh man, the emission killed a flock of birds that, you know, had no conscience of what was going on, and they all just like fell out right outside of my shelter, you know. And it's totally random but like really awesome detail.
That's hardcore.
Yeah,
I've never seen anything like that happen. That's really amazing.
Yeah,
we like this game.
I'm going to play this video game.
It's okay. It's fine.
You like it.
I do like it. Any other ones?
You guys do have as an outsider, you have an uncanny ability to make somebody who doesn't play everything want to play this strange game. Yeah.
You guys did make me play Dawn of War 2, though, and I wasn't really into it.
Well,
I didn't mean,
that's your fault.
It was you and Nick.
Yeah, I still think it's a really good game.
Well, I mean, but the thing about it is that, like, you and we and whatever are, I think, capable of making stuff that we are sort of into as a deep niche sound really attractive, but if you're not actually into that kind of game, you still might not like it.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I'm still gonna pretend every game is the best game.
I think every game is best.
Oh man, Casey. Well, then no game is. Casey Kramer asks, "Will any of you guys be attending PAX East?" Far Cry 2 reference. Casey Kramer. Karner. Sorry.
What? Jake's going to PAX East.
I think I'm going to PAX East.
Where does that take place? What city?
East.
It takes place in the East.
The far east.
In the East. I see. The Orient. Well, that sounds like a wonderful trip.
I don't think anyone else in this room is going to it. I'm not sure.
I don't think I am, no.
I know that I'm not.
I also am not.
If you want to meet Jake Video Games Rodkin, go to PAX East.
You'll have to find me at PAX.
Look for the guy that looks like David Cage.
Big Bird.
Max Headroom.
And that other guy, that musician guy.
And Jake Rodkin.
No, I don't think he looks.
No, he looks nothing like Jake Rodkin.
Yeah, it's weird.
Next.
He also looks nothing like Jackie Rodkins. But
that is true. That doesn't look like him.
No, which is probably for the best.
That bot named Scoops does look like me, though.
It's really good that there's a bot named Scoops.
Yeah.
A bot named Scoops.
Also, that's my favorite.
And also, that was a really cool... I mean, this is... Sorry. No, but that was cool. The being then bots getting named with that gene tonic.
Yeah. One of our programmers just kind of like thought that it was an idea that had just been kicked around like much earlier, and he was like, oh yeah, we could totally do that, and the feature just kind of appeared one day, and we're like, that's the best thing.
It's weird.
And then the designers got to go in and just edit a text file to put a bunch of stupid names.
I actually got much more attached to my bots in BioShock 2 than I did in BioShock 1 for some reason, and then I didn't equip that tonic until way later.
Oh yeah.
So, and then I was even more attached to them, and like it was like I had this like little family of pets.
Well, that's how you played BioShock 1 too, isn't it? You got a bunch of drones following you around, and then
it felt very
told me
powerful.
that you just had an army of robots following you through the game.
But that felt more like this is my army of robots,
sure,
and like in BioShock 2, I felt like these are my buddies. It was very strange. It's funny just giving them names actually kicked it up a notch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there were additional tonics that like let you,
summon them.
Well, yeah, there was the summoning, and then there was upgrading it so you summon more powerful bots, and there were tonics to make the bots more, have more hit points so they wouldn't be destroyed so easily. And
I maxed out all that stuff. I was all about that.
I mean, I'm totally a controller kind of player, so I loved having Hypnotize and Security Command 2 or 3, and just always having like a Hypnotize splicer and 2 bots.
I never used Hypnotize. I forgot about it.
You
always.
should.
Yeah.
If I go back,
you would like
Hypnotize.
Oh, because I mean, the third level of it is Hypnotize Big Daddy from BioShock 1,
right.
and the first level is Enrage from BioShock 1, but the mid level is you charge it up, and then you can just hypnotize any splicer in the game. So you can have like a teleporter splicer following you around, and he's just your buddy. Wow. And if a guy gets pissed off at you, he will throw fireballs at it. It has a lifespan. It times out after like I don't know how long it is.
When it times out, does he turn on you?
He has a specific bark that is breaking out of it, and then he gets mad.
Okay, cool. I literally never did it, but
really?
Yeah, not once.
I like it a lot. But I mean, I knew about it. I was in the unique position to know it existed and that it was cool, so of course I used it. But the main thing to do was like hypnotize a guy, have him follow you around until there's nobody around, and you feel like he might go aggro, and then just shotgun him in the back of the head.
And just give him some like the mice and men treatment. Like,
it's
terrible.
I mean, on the other hand, I guess you could just hypnotize him again, and it would refresh it.
I really enjoyed hypnotizing Big Daddies in the first game, but it scared the fuck out of me because they moved so goddamn fast. And you come around a corner and then just boom, 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 and then just like this sort of happy dog is there, but you know that like at any second he could just drill your face.
Except, I mean, the thing is that with the Big Daddies, you didn't really have that problem because
I know, but I didn't.
They just go back to being neutral, Whereas with splicers, they will get mad at you when it wears off.
The one time that wore off was in the middle of a firefight.
Oh, friendly fire.
Oh, and
it scared the shit out of me.
Took a ricochet off the head
and calmed down, and then boom! I just popped him in the head, and he turned and just chased.
Oh man!
No, my friend! No! Oh god! And then my face was drilled, and it was the worst.
Well, but if you
shoot the podcast,
if you shoot a hypnotized Big Daddy while they're friendly to you, they will also get pissed off.
Oh really?
Well, I mean, past a certain threshold, you can't just hypnotize them and then
maybe I was just firing bullets at this guy. Anyway,
pretty good video game. Any more reader mail?
Yeah.
Didn't mean to derail reader mail though.
This guy
totally fine.
This guy has
reader mail spends a lot of time being derailed generally.
Yeah, which is all right. That's how it works. This guy has a Fallout 3 story, I guess, inspired by Stalker stories. So Scott writes
Fallout 3 based on Stalker. Call it.
No one actually asks questions anymore.
A novel
People
by
just
Sapphire.
Send,
anecdotes. Yeah, just an anecdote theater.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. Actually, sometimes they do ask questions, and I don't read them because they're not that interesting. But
wow,
thanks, readers.
Well, people send a lot of other interesting stuff. All right, so Scott writes, scary game moments. While this doesn't have the same fear factor that Remo has fun with his Stalker stories, I did recently have a very panic-inducing moment in Fallout 3. I'm quite behind on the times, but I'm slowly and methodically making my way through the game I was playing last night. I just come across the raider camp at Evergreen Mills and picked off all the raiders. There's a super mutant behemoth in that camp, captured in an enclosed electrical fence area. Being a lower level, I was still pretty freaked out by any kind of high-level monster. I shot at him with a few random weapons, then decided to start tossing grenades at him so I could get the XP for killing him. Unfortunately, my very first grenade throw rolled down a slight incline and right back into the generator that was holding him in. That explosion blew up the generator, and the fence became unelectrified. At which point, the super mutant immediately burst from his enclosure and charged me. I had no time to react and basically screamed aloud in panicked terror and started to run away from him. He chased me and promptly killed me, which was made worse because I hadn't saved the entire time I took out the raider camp and thus had to redo the entire camp fight with 10 or so raiders. Fallout 3 is extremely good at creating spooky, evocative settings, and I'm usually pretty panicky when I explore buildings, too. First time I saw a glowing or radioactive ghoul, I also had a similar panic-inducing situation. Your friend in time, Scott Soggy Bagel. P.S. Obligatory wizard shout-out. That's for Steve.
Chris is just adding additional ones.
Yeah, right. Also, horsebag trine.
Yeah.
Horsebag is fine.
Really? You're just totally arbitrary then.
Well, horsebag is just a good word.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's all.
Yeah.
I just have nothing against Horsebag. That's all.
Okay. But yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah.
It's another one that kind of feels like it could have been a quick scene from a movie. Where it's
Yeah, where it's
the
just like
grenade
a
slowly.
hilarious...
Oh shit!
It does a shoulder roll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he's definitely right about Fallout 3 being really good at making you feel creeped out and oppressed when like exploring and building. The fucking Germantown police station is the most just like it most kind of like repulsive. You don't want to be in there. There's some good atmosphere in that game.
It's true.
And it should be played by all.
Yeah.
Car horns.
Scoops horn.
The Scoops horn, just a little,
Just a little hing.
Cool. Well, there's probably some more mail, but that was a lot of mail, so.
It was an appropriate amount of mail.
Yeah.
You all right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Video games.
If you need anything.
Famous will help you out.
It's your favorite name.
It is. It's the best.
It's been good having you on, Famous. It's fun.
Hey, thanks for having me,
Famous.
guys. It's been really nice. Talking about video games.
Yeah, that's what we did, actually. I guess it is.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll be back someday with another episode, probably.
You
Say
can
bye,
send us an
Marek.
email at
Yeah.
questions at idlethumbs. Questions at
See you, Marek.
idlethumbs.net.
Questions
Bye,
at
Marek.
Question.
If I am going to sleep forever now.
Or you can go to
By
our
the
forums at...
idlethumbs.net/forums.
Yes.
If you have a question or story about video games, but really a question,
Yeah, you can actually send us questions, but make it good.
No pressure.
Also, you might have sent in a good question and we just didn't get to it yet. Or you could have sent in a shitty question and I deliberately didn't read it. So it's up to you.
wow,
to then-
just be self-aware.
No, there
enough to think
probably were some good questions in there. We just didn't get to. But
There definitely were some shitty questions in there that you didn't want to read.
wow.
I'm sure
That's
all
the
the questions
implication
were
I'm
Everyone
great.
wrote great questions.
There's no
All
such
right.
thing as a shitty question.
Just a shitty reader.
Just shitty people.
Writing it.
if you would like to be subject to this abuse, please email questions at idlethumbs.net.
We would like to make a statement. Idle Thumbs would like to just state that they were very tired and after GDC, and maybe do not mean everything that they said just now when they called you all a bunch of fucking assholes. I didn't send in stupid shit.
Say bye, Marek.
God, this episode is
Bye,
over.
Marek.
I bet cumulatively we're working on
Guys.
like less than 20 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I know.
And over the past
Man
72
hours.
Like adding them
Sleep
all up.
hours.
I've had 7.
Yes.
2 nights.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I guess that ended at some point.
Just fade it out.
Yeah. Oh man, I have to fucking
Video
be
games.
asleep for a day.
Sunday is a good day for that.
I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna be like the Lord tomorrow.
Walk away.
Say bye, Marek.
Bye.
Marek.
You're a fucking trooper for even
Yeah, why are you here? What are you doing?
I'm listening to your podcast.
Yeah, but you're bored by it. I hate it.
Yeah, but you hated every second of it. Yep.
That'll be the fucking theme. All of us whistling it.
What?
God damn it.
It's retarded.
Nope.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
again. Whoa.
What are you doing? Your voice is terrible.
Apparently, it's,
Steve is an alien.
we play that backwards and Satan comes out.
It's just like, play Deadly Premonition.
What the fuck? What did it say?
It's play Deadly Premonition.
The entirety of their marketing campaign.
Video games.
GDC podcasts are for some reason called conf grenades.
I really like that.
Well, it's because it's a conch grenade
it's 'cause
from
it's like a conch
TF1,
grenade. Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
TF
Yeah,
Classic.
It's a
whatever.
concussion grenade.
Yeah.
And the PAX episodes are standalone expansion packs.
Yeah.
Worst.
Oh, like PAX, I guess.
Yeah, terrible.
That's good.
Oh man.
It's just to make people both laugh and cry when they see their RSS feed show up and just go, oh.
No, it's great.
I like them. I love
it. They're hilarious.
Yeah,
it makes me wish there was a third convention. I guess we could do one for E3.
Well, I mean,
but it would just be the E3 Suicide Pact, basically.
It's the only time that you guys devolve into the standard naming convention for video game websites or video game podcasts, which is Spawn Point or something. It's like,
right. Voice chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Online chat. Yeah. With
multiplayer lobby.
Multiplayer lobby.
Split screen. I mean,
split screen. That would definitely be one.
Yeah.
And that would have a slash between
that
split
reminds
and
me
screen.
of a fake indie game.
Oh, yeah. 2D Dreams.
2D Dreams. Yeah.
2D Dreams?
2D, as in 2D boy.
Oh, not like all the dreams in a time.
No, it was our not executed plan to start the fake IGF entries hashtag on Twitter.
That started Friday morning, and then we never consummated or made that a thing.
Done it.
You love the word consummate.
I love consomme, actually.
Oh,
so
tutti consomme.
All of the consomme, please.
We have Sean Tutti Consomme Vanaman.
Yeah, Tutti Consomme.
Famous Tutti Consomme.
It sounds like somebody from South Africa.
Yeah, it sounds like a guy who won the Boston Marathon. Yeah.
What?
I don't know, like those African dudes who run real
far. From Kenyan who always show up and
Tutti Consomme.
Tutti Consomme.
Won it in 2006 and 7.
God, that feels so good on my lips.
Can we cut that part out and just loop forever?
That feels so good on my lips. Lips.
That feels so good.
Phaedrus.
It just segues into his backwards thing. Me saying it feels good on my lips.
Somehow Phaedrus once said backwards.
Let's just release this.
This is good.
Let's just release what we got.
This is what the people want.
Fucking in the can.
See you guys.